Put something worthwhile on your iPod or MP3 player. LeslieMarshallShow.com/members.
This is Brad Bannon, and this is hour 3 of the Leslie Marshall Show. We are continuing our discussion of environmental issues to help ease you into Earth Day tomorrow. We have our political roundtable. First of all, we have Democratic strategist Marty Dunleavy. We also have our executive producer, Mark Grimaldi. And most importantly, we have Carol from Wisconsin on the line. Carol, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, Brad. How are you?
Oh, just fine. What do you have to say?
About the Keystone pipeline.
Okay.
It's a very bad idea. If there is a spill, which you know there's going to be one eventually, those tar sands sink when they get into the water, and we do not have the technology to clean it up because those tar sands sink straight to the bottom. There was a tar sand spill in Kalamazoo River in 2010, 800,000 gallons. The company took 2 years to try to clean it up. The EPA came back and said, nope, not good enough. You're going to have to dredge the river. These tar sands are so dirty they cause 3 times the global warming pollution of conventional crude production. But the Koch brothers, they own these tar sands, and I heard on NPR that they stand to make $1 trillion over like a 30 or 40-year period. So you know this is not going to go away anytime soon.
Now, so the several $100 million they're going to spend to convince Americans Keystone is a good idea, is worthwhile, could pay off big time for them.
Big time, yes, and it's a terrible idea. We do not have the technology to clean it up. I don't know why that can't get out there. People need to know that. Right now they're proposing to, if they can't get the Keystone pipeline, they have a proposal on Lake Superior to load these tar sands onto barges in Lake Superior and have these barges put these tar sands, deliver them to refineries along the Great Lakes. And you know, our Great Lakes have 1/5 of the world's clean water, and you know how deep Lake Superior is, or any of the Great Lakes, but especially Superior. If there's a problem, you know, it's going to sink. There's not going to be a way to clean it up.
Okay.
You remember the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald?
Yes, I do.
Those storms whip up on the Great Lakes pretty darn fast and can cause a catastrophe.
Yeah, great song came out of it by Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah.
Carol, let me ask you this to sort of segue into our next discussion. Most Americans don't see global warming as a serious problem. Do you have any thoughts on what we can do to convince Americans that global warming is a serious problem?
You know, I'm not sure. Well, I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. If you could see, I was able to meet Sally Ride. And one thing that really impressed me about her is she said the first thing she looked at out the window when she was on the space shuttle is she looked back at the Earth and saw a very thin glow around our globe. And she thought to herself, oh, you know, what is that? And she realized that's the atmosphere. Our atmosphere, according to NASA, is only 60 miles wide. And we're putting millions and millions of tons of carbon into the air. You're going to have an effect. I wish people could see that. 60 miles, that's about as far as a car can drive in an hour. We don't have a lot protecting us. I don't know, maybe you know, some more visuals, or I'm not sure why people are ignoring the problem, or they just, I'm not really sure.
Okay. Carol, thanks very much for calling in.
Okay.
Well, let me put this question to our panel. Marty, you're a strategist. My reading of public opinion is that Americans see global warming as a problem, but they don't see it as a serious threat. Do you have any ideas how we can convince Americans that it is a serious threat and something we should be worried about right now?
No, Brad, but I have a different take on how we can sell this as a problem or as something that needs a solution.
Okay.
Than a lot of people are putting out there. Instead of screaming and yelling like the right wing expects us to do, that the sky is falling, which it is, I think we should be saying, hey, listen, what happens when we try and stop global warming? Well, we clean up the air. Is anybody opposed to clean air? No, very few people actually are opposed to clean air because they understand now, after 30 years since the original Earth Day, actually it's, I guess, 40 years now, that clean air is a problem, and we'll have clean water. Most people aren't opposed to clean water. They don't necessarily believe that hydrocarbon burning causes dirty water, but they're in favor of clean water. So if we start to say, hey, listen, there's no downside to passing legislation and encouraging conservation, and the upside is we're going to stimulate new jobs and new industry and conservation, it may be a better approach. It's a less confrontational approach. I read recently that there are a number of quote-unquote oil companies that are now into the alternative energy business. Those companies know that the future's in non-petroleum and alternative energy. If we put tax incentives into those industries, if we put tax incentives into developing new technologies, all those corporations are going to rush to gobble them up. Do I necessarily think we need to be feeding corporations? You know I don't. I'm a labor guy, and I think the 1% is wealthy enough. But in reality, if we want to change the argument, I think we have to change the point of view or the confrontation to a more progressive idea of saying, hey, whether you believe in global warming or not, there's no downside in fixing the problem. There's no downside in cleaner air, cleaner water, and a cleaner environment. If anything, there's an economic upside for you greedy bastards.
Mark, you want to weigh in on this? How do we convince Americans that global warming is a serious problem?
Not to suck up on air, but I have to applaud Marty, especially for his closing line there. But I think, that's especially important. He's right. If you have the tax incentives there, these corporations have proved they don't care about anything else but money. So, throw the money in that direction for them to follow, and they will, number one. Number two, I think you see a lot of the, climate change organizations pivoting from, look how bad this is, duh. And, I have the same problem where it's just outrageous that people don't see this when it's staring them in the face. But you then have to take a step back and go, okay, that's not working. Let's refine our approach. We're still getting the same message across. So I think the approach does need refinement. One thing that I noticed, and I was reading this the climate report from IPCC, and one of the organizations, newscientist.com, had an interesting article that basically broke down how climate change will specifically affect you where you live. So it broke it down by Europe, North America, Asia, Australia, Africa, Central and South America, and then small islands, essentially. And, so even if people don't care about other areas of the world, which I hate to say it, but plenty of people won't tell you that for a fact, but, if they're talking amongst their friends, they got a couple beers in them, they'll say, hey, who cares? When am I ever going to go there? Well, how does it affect me? Well,
it's not in my backyard.
Exactly. So if you specifically look at North America, it says for North America that we're going to have shifting water problems. And what that means is that rain and storms are going to move northward, and they're going to flood areas north of New York and leave southern areas short of water. And Mexican people are going to have to do everything they can to preserve water and escape the heat. So you have all these right-wingers who are terribly, terrified of Mexicans, even though, they've been working here for years and doing the labor that a lot of these people would never touch with a 10-foot pole. You can say to them, well, if you're concerned about illegal immigration, you're going to give, people even more of a reason to flee their country legally or illegally. So now they have two competing ideas. They can't have both at the same time. So that's one way. The other problem is you're going to have more flooding. And the total costs are expected to increase tenfold this century. So there's your right-wing deficit hawks, okay? They don't want to spend more money. Well, there you go. The other thing is you have people who, if they didn't believe climate change, you saw what Superstorm Sandy did and how it wreaked havoc on areas that have not had natural disasters. So you're now having, it's unfortunate that that's what it takes, but you're now having real-life actual disasters that people have never seen the strength of in their lives, A, or B, it's happening in the types of storms are happening in areas they've never happened before. So you have to use these examples and use the bad example, because it's going to happen anyway, to show these people how it's affecting them. So I think those are some strategies that I would try to push.
Okay. Yep, go ahead, Marty.
I would love to see a poll, for example, of people who live on Staten Island and compare their numbers before and after Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah.
On global warming.
Very good.
It's the most conservative area of New York City. It is traditionally an area that elects Republicans. It's overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly Catholic and ethnic, and basically one of the epicenters of what we used to call the Reagan Democrats, or the new blue-collar conservatives. I bet after Hurricane Sandy, the numbers shifted at least 30 points on global warming. Why? Because when it happens in your backyard, you pay more attention to it. And you're less susceptible to people saying, oh, this isn't a problem, this isn't a problem. When it's a problem for you, it's a problem. All of a sudden you realize it's a problem. And in your case, I think you live about 4 miles from the shore. I live 7 miles from the shore. And I can tell you, the rivers are overflowing here in Connecticut. I live up on a hill. You've been to my house, Brad. I'm getting groundwater through my sewer lines, backing up into my backyard, up on a hill, 200 feet above the street level. And it is going to be something that people are going to become aware of. The real danger is they're going to become aware of it too late. Today, the UN said that if we don't fix this problem in the next 10 years, or if we don't make significant strides in the next 10 years, chances are we're not going to be able to reverse it.
Yeah, my guess
We've got to do it. We've got to do it sooner rather than later. We're already 5 or 10 years too late, and we're losing the polar ice cap. But more importantly, we're changing the weather patterns throughout the world.
Yeah, my guess is another place you could probably do a before and after poll in a conservative area is in the Central Valley of California, which is very conservative and agricultural. The problem is they haven't been able to grow any crops because the severe drought has basically eliminated a good chunk of their water supply. So that's a place people are feeling, and my guess is consumers will be feeling it soon because the prices of fruits and vegetables that come out of California is going to go sky high because of the drought.
As soon as they see it at their grocery store, they're going to flip out, and then they're going to be looking for answers, and then those ads and, pushes that the Koch brothers have. And you know what? People are also, they said now, I can't remember what the poll is, but more and more people are aware of who the Koch brothers actually are. And eventually, once enough people know who they are and they see these ads and they realize who's responsible for them, and then they connect the dots when stuff like that happens, like, Marty was talking about, you have, in Staten Island, this stuff happens, they start to see through these ploys, and then not only will the real message become more effective, I think a lot of the distraction BS will become less effective.